think everyone's gone through an embarrassing phase or two at some point in their life. I've had more than one or two, or three, or four. I think my Dream SMP phase stands out as the most memorable, though. Even if it was admittedly a little shameful. It's like watching a trashy drama TV show as a guilty pleasure. In this case, it's inside of a pixelated kids game instead of Beverly Hills, but you know. Yet, looking back on it, years later, you don't have to denounce all of it, even with the controversies and the horrible things that everybody did and the weirder parts. There's actually quite a bit to appreciate, too, to the point where you just can't help but come back to this little block game roleplay after all this time. It's almost timeless. But why is that? To preface, if you're looking for a deep dive or a detailed recap of each arc and each character in the lore, this is not the right place. I'd be here for hours. But it has been over 5 years since it started, so here's a refresh on all the main events and characters in the Dream SMP lore. There's 5 main arcs, more or less, that happen across the time of the server. The real action starts with the start of the Disc Wars between Dream, TommyInnit, and Tubbo. After that, there's the Revolutionary War for L'Manberg, led by Wilbursoot, TommyInnit, and others against Dream and Co. That war led into a brief peace before Stott won the elections, which caused the whole Manberg v Pogtopia plotline. After that, things got a little complicated. There was Tommy's exile, the Egg Cult, L'Manberg getting destroyed, and Dream getting put into prison, all happening concurrently in their own arc the Wiki calls the Retribution Era. And then, at the end of everything, there's Wilbur's revival, Dream's escape from prison, and nuclear bombs that spark the finale ending of the server. Of course, that's the incredibly simplified version, so if you want more details, look up a proper recap. There's so many different stories that aren't included here because every content creator involved got the creative freedom to do pretty much whatever they reasonably wanted to do for their own story. Time travel, being a Las Vegas-esque crime lord, immortality, deities, anarchy syndicates, marriage for tax benefits, there's something for everybody. You can watch from every character's perspective too, just about. However, among all of these characters, there's only a few that stand out as the de facto main characters. There's TommyInnit, obviously, as the brash underdog hero protagonist, and then Tubbo, his best friend, that's more malleable and adaptable into whatever people wanted from him. Dream stands out as the main villain, a power-obsessed tyrant, and Wilbur starts out as this mentor leader figure that falls into madness until he's completely unhinged and obsessed with destruction. Technoblade is the distrusting, violent-prone anarchist with a very strict moral code, and then there's about a dozen or two more characters that really buff out any other qualities you could want in this type of story. All of the characters and stories really only built up a few core themes that ran through the entire plot, though. There was independence, whether that be for a country like L'Manberg's independence, or Tommy's independence from Dream and Wilbur. There's morality, with all of the debates of who's in the right and what actions are justified. Did Technoblade deserve to get executed because of November 16th? How far can Tommy go in the name of his music discs? Is everything that Quackity does to Dream justified after everything the latter did to everybody else? And above everything else, power. Dream's power over everybody, the music disc's power over Tommy, the power the egg holds over anyone it corrupts, the power people use Technoblade for, and so on and so forth. All of these elements of the lore are directly influenced by many things, some more obvious than others. Wilbursoot was unquestionably inspired by the Hamilton musical for the first few storylines, and then Technoblade used many Greek myths both to guide the lore itself as well as the audience's view of certain characters, especially Tommy. However, the Dream SMP didn't single-handedly invent Minecraft roleplay, or this type of interactive, improvised storytelling in general. So where does it come from? Minecraft roleplay as a genre is pretty understated, but has so many features that are utterly unique to its specific type of storytelling and medium. For example, the world-building opportunities alone set it apart from typical fantasy or sci-fi stories out there. You can take advantage of the features within the game itself, like golden apples, the respawn function, totems of undying, the different dimensions, and so on. You can also build something entirely new thanks to the sandbox nature of the game and the hundreds of available mods for it. This makes the sets completely interactive and customizable. You can make castles, cities, hot dog vans, winter cabins, giant underground layers, laboratories, seriously anything. But Minecraft's only half the medium, with the other half being social media, namely Twitch and YouTube, but it extends past that to Twitter, Tumblr, and TikTok too. The creators of any roleplay can interact with an impossibly wide audience in ways that can even influence the plot with live stream chats, YouTube comments, Twitter polls, and so on. And this audience participation is really only possible thanks to how improvised these stories are, or at least the Dream SMP is, with only the main plot beats being scripted. The smaller interactions and the paths between each event are made up entirely in the moment by the content creators. Another unique feature is how the characters are created. Not all of the members of these things are proper writers by any means, but the content creators often draw inspiration from their own lives or personalities for their characters. Ranboo specifically mentioned doing this once, explaining that their character's story was highly inspired by their own life experiences and life events. On the other hand, this impact that the content creators have on their characters can also be negative. There's many cases in Minecraft roleplay of unspoken misogyny and racism within both the groups themselves and the fandom spheres. Unequal diversity, more attention being given to the white male characters, and even ignored minority characters. There's also the occasionally offensive humor that these things create. The way Nikki Nihachu specifically and her character were treated, looking back on it, is really unfair. Negative and positive qualities aside, though, there are some storytelling forms that are similar to Minecraft roleplay and the Dream SMP. Some are more obvious than others, with Dungeons & Dragons and other tabletop roleplay games clearly being a sort of founding father for the Dream SMP and Minecraft roleplay at large. Both are highly improvised stories that anyone can take part in and let their creativity run free. And then there's the less obvious one that I really only realized a couple weeks ago and that inspired me to create this video in the first place. Theater. I know I said this was one influence, but it's actually two specific periods of theater art. Elizabethan theater, or English Renaissance plays, think Shakespeare, and ancient Greek theater. Believe it or not, the Dream SMP is actually eerily similar to both of these in a myriad of ways. Firstly, there's the interactivity between the audience and the acting cast, with Twitch chats and Greek choruses. English Renaissance plays had something like this called asides, which were when characters would do kind of a reality TV moment and briefly talk directly to the audience. Secondly, all three also have very memorable costumes in one way or another. Greek theater had ceramic masks to portray the emotion and appearances of main characters. Elizabethan plays had luxurious, colorful costumes to make up for their very plain sets, and the Dream SMP has those incredibly recognizable Minecraft skins. Intentional or not, each character has their own signature color, or colors, that you can recognize them by, as well as other features like hair color, eye color, species, or just being a more abstract design of a white blob on top of green. And then thirdly, there's very similar storytelling elements across all three, with the Dream SMP lying right in the middle. Historical or political dramas were highly popular in English plays, and themes of morality, revenge, power, and control were sprinkled across all three of these. The next one actually surprised me with how similar it had come to be in these stories across history. Misogyny! Back in ancient Greece and Elizabethan England, this was because women were pretty much completely banned from acting in plays, and instead, men played the female roles. In the Dream SMP, like I said, women are technically allowed, but not all that welcome. Instead, fans and content creators alike would push the stereotypically feminine roles onto main male characters, and this ends up with very interesting gender dynamics and very heavy queer coding, intentional and malicious or otherwise. Finally, across all three, there's also some baseline censorship of violence. On stage, there was no blood or death allowed, with characters having to describe these events to others and the audience instead. In the Dream SMP, there was definitely more violence, but they still had to work within the confines of Minecraft, the game where death is shown by a character falling to the side and disappearing in a puff of smoke. But these aren't all of the similarities out there between these three, it's really just the surface level. All three share very popular genre styles. Early Dream SMP lore is very reminiscent of the political and historical dramas quite popular in English Renaissance plays. Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet is the most widely recognized example, with the background tensions coming from political strife between two powerful families. And obviously, there's all of the Greek mythology references included in the Dream SMP lore too. Theseus and the Minotaur, Zephyrus, Icarus, Achilles, and so on are all referenced or very quite similar to different moments and characters in the Dream SMP. The Dream SMP also has quite similar humor to both as well. English Renaissance plays were quite fond of insult duels, roast battles pretty much, and really loved wordplay within this. And then Greek comedy theater often used crude or sexual humor and exaggerated appearances of things. All of these were prevalent in the Dream SMP, depending on which content creator we're talking about. On a more technical level, there are multiple writing techniques from these eras used in the Dream SMP. They used Elizabethan soliloquies a lot to fill the silence in lore streams when content creators would be on their own but still had to advance the plot and entertain the audience. The characters most famous for this were Wilbur and Tommy. And then on the ancient Greek side, there's the Deus Ex Machina. It's basically a surprise event that happens near the end of the plot to provide a happy ending when things otherwise seem impossible to fix. In the Dream SMP, this specifically happens during the January 20th Disc War finale, when Tommy and Tubbo are confronting Dream. They fight hard, but quickly start losing. Dream reveals his entire plan to take the prized possession of every person on the server, an entire trophy room built for them already. But before that, he has to kill Tubbo. And then, at the very last second, Dream's right-hand man swoops in with an unexpected betrayal, and all the other members come to Tommy and Tubbo's aid. God, I sound 14 again. Before I can think too hard about that, let's move on to the next similarity. All three of these are fairly apolitical on paper, but they still serve as reflections of political values of the time and their current events. During the English Renaissance, Queen Elizabeth I widely influenced English plays, so they basically served as pro-Tudor propaganda. Ancient Greek theater performances, on the other hand, poke fun at politicians, philosophers, and any attention-worthy events that had happened recently. The Dream SMP more closely aligns with the Greek theater version of this, but they still portray the ideals their audience held for the most part. I like to call that post-quarantine liberalism. Pride, sexism bad, stuff like that. Most of the time it was disingenuous, but at least some of the content creators were genuine on their stances in this. And then the final similarity I'll bearage you all with is the transformation that happened to these performances in both the English Renaissance and during the Dream SMP's peak. For the former, this meant playwrights and actors could properly make a living off of their writing and performances, or at least the famous ones could, like Shakespeare. For the Dream SMP, this resulted in a boom in Twitch streaming during the peak years, and then the further popularization of gaming content on social media in general. It also ended with tons of copycats like those "Hear why I should be your new comfort streamer" TikToks, or how many YouTubers took inspiration from Dream SMP members' videos and streams. MCC, a Minecraft championship including pretty much all the Dream SMP members at some point or another, had more concurrent viewers than the actual Olympics during the absolute peak of the Dream SMP in 2020's Minecraft YouTube. So you could say it was trendy. More than trendy, even. People keep going back to it even now during certain dramatic or scary times, or as sort of a comedic refuge, despite the embarrassment assigned to having such an interest. But even after the Dream SMP ended and people's attentions shifted to other interests, its effects linger. This lasting influence is definitely nowhere near the level Elizabethan plays and ancient Greek theater still affect pop culture even now. They set the tone for many conventional themes, genres, and plot styles in all sorts of media. Those ceramic emotion masks turn into a worldwide symbol for theater and drama. Not to mention Shakespeare. But the Dream SMP shows just how much this style of storytelling and performance has evolved over centuries. Social media lets these theater-esque performances become more accessible and interactive than ever. Anybody with an internet connection can watch them, enjoy them, and then argue about them with other people on Twitter. Or, even outside of the social sphere, theater has turned into something you can do with friends. This is thanks to D&D and other tabletop roleplay games, and like I said earlier, Minecraft roleplay too. Traditional theater itself, musical or otherwise, is still insanely popular and acclaimed in its own right. There are very few moments in history where they ever lost importance anyways. People just can't get enough of watching silly little guys sing and dance in costumes on a stage. So after all this, my question is, where are we going to find this style next? That's all I have for today, though. Thank you so much for watching and for the support this far. As of writing this, I just got to 200 subscribers, which is amazing. Thanks to anyone who subscribed for that, and to all of the people who are hopefully subscribing right now. Speaking of, almost 99% of my viewers aren't actually even subscribed to me. If you want to be the first to know when I upload next, feel free to do that. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like or comment too. I'm trying to listen to you guys' feedback about what content you guys enjoy the most, so maybe I'll end up making more videos like this one in the future if you guys like it. Thanks for watching!